Hey, everybody, and welcome to the first ever episodes of ESLA's Icons and Experts. I'm going to share more about that, but the good folks at AHOA were so excited about our first show featuring Mike Leven that they wanted to, help co-sponsor and bring this podcast to you. So I wanted to say that AHOA takes immense pride in sponsoring the inaugural podcast of the Extended Stay and Lodging Association, particularly with the inclusion of Mike Leven, who is a pivotal figure and co-founded AHOA 35 years ago. Interesting, he said, I love this quote, lots of people can make financial turnarounds and grow businesses, which I've done, he said. But when you have a chance to establish an idea and an organization that changes the course of many lives, well, that stands out as a very important accomplishment to me. We get into that accomplishment and so many more. Stay tuned for our episode. I really look forward to you enjoying it. Thank you. Hey everybody, it's your hospitality friend Glenn here. I'm excited to welcome you to the first episode of Icons and Experts, a brand new podcast series that's brought to you by my friends over at the Extended Stay Lodging Association. You all know Extended Stay Lodging is taking off, right? And you're all aware that it's a really great opportunity for you to place a great investment and make some money while satisfying guests. Well, this series is going to do two things. First of all, each episode is I'm going to be joined by an ESLA board member. So we're going to have a great rotating group of guests. And sometimes we're going to interview an industry icon so we can learn the hows and the whys and the history of how extended stay started. While other times we're going to get more practical about learning the business today. And we're going to learn from some experts who may also happen to be some board members of ESLA and some of our trusted colleagues out there. All right, so today's episode features the incredible icon among icons, Mike Leven, and it's sponsored by our friends over at Delasard Hospitality. In fact, Doug Artuzio of Delasard is going to be my co-host today. And Delasard Hospitality, the reason why they're sponsoring this is because they are the leader in third-party management of extended stay hotels. For more than 22 years, they've been doing extended stay hotel ownership and have the management experience to prove it. So Delasard is the only hospitality company to offer all three key services: full management, remote sales support, remote revenue management service. You got to reach out to them, delasard.com. That's delasard.com. All right, so Mike Leven, you know him. He's an icon among icons, legendary business executive and visionary in the hotel industry and beyond. He was president of Days Inn, launched Holiday Inn Express when he was running Holiday Inn worldwide, created U.S. franchise systems, helped co-create the Asian American Hotel Owners Association, was even president and CEO of Las Vegas Sands Corp. You know, that place in Venetian. Well, it's since been sold, but he ran it at the time, and he served on many, 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 many philanthropic boards. I want to make a big underscore with that. He has given back so much to an industry and a world that has given so much to him. So sit back, enjoy this interview. I love doing it. I hope you're going to enjoy it as much as me. Thanks for watching. Hey everybody, it's Friendly Hospitality Glenn here, and I'm excited because we have a brand new podcast series being brought to you by the good folks at the Extended Stay Lodging Association. This one's going to be icons and experts, all the people in the industry that helped set the stage for our incredible success today. And I'm going to have a rotating group of co-hosts with me, and our first co-host, Doug Artuzio. Hey, Doug, you're also the founder of the Extended Stay Lodging Association. Thanks for joining me today on this one.
Glenn, it's totally my pleasure. We are so excited about this Icons and Experts program.
Yeah.
For the next over the next year. So
yeah.
Much information coming out, exciting information, hearing from icons, experts on all different levels of aspects, things will help the extended stay business. So we're really, really excited about that.
I am too. I'm a little worried though, Doug, because we're setting the bar high right out of the gate with today's guests, aren't we?
Well, when you think about icons, you think about pioneers in the hospitality business. Mm-hmm. Think about people that have done things that others have not. They've treaded on virgin territory, basically, to create what we have today. And I am honored. I am pleased to have an old friend of mine who I've known for so many years, gave me one of my very first opportunities in the hospitality business way, way, way back in New York City. And that's Mike Leven, a true quintessential icon of the hospitality business. And I couldn't be more delighted than to be participating in this podcast along with Mike and yourself, Glenn.
Thanks. I will be bringing Mike in just a second, but I don't want to embarrass him by having him sit here and have to hear his whole bio over there. But he's been in the industry from, like you said, like 60 years. He was the president of Las Vegas Sands Corporation. He founded US franchise systems with brands like Microtel, Hawthorn, Best Inns, and Best Suites hotel brands. He was the CEO of Holiday Inn Hotels and Resorts back in the day. He served as president of Days Inn of America as well. He's had a real interest in the civil rights movement, helping older workers with disabilities and the homeless. And if that wasn't enough, helped co-found AHOA. Let's welcome to the show the incredible Mike Leven. Mike, I forgot to mention the Georgia Aquarium stuff. I hope you could forgive me.
Oh, that's my best job. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
That's great. Nice to be here. Nice to see Doug again. It's always nice to see an old friend. And somebody who remembers me at my stage of the game. Being remembered is all you have. I mean, I just sit here and do interviews. So whatever.
Yeah.
But at any rate, I'm happy to be here. And any way I can help Doug at his new venture and help you, Glenn, I'm happy to do. Always nice to see you every 10 years.
Yeah.
Do this again 10 years from now.
I know. Well, and next time I'll probably be, losing my hair along with you. I still got.
Oh, I lost it a long time. I can tell you that.
Yeah, but it really helped define your look, I think, because you made that cool before other people were. But Mike, you've been at this for so long, and the brands that you helped develop, the brands that you stewarded to success have become, like yourself, iconic in the industry. Looking back, what does it feel like to have such a imprint on the American hospitality industry and on our culture in general with these great brands?
Well, I sort of don't look at it without knowing how lucky I was to be in a position to make the difference.
Mm-hmm.
I think most of the brands that I worked with required a leadership that really understood the franchisee, really understood the people who ran the hotels, really made them work. And I think key to the success that I had over the years was learning at Sonesta Hotels in the very beginning about what was a good hotel, what was good management, what was good leadership. And I worked my way through all the chairs. And by working through all the chairs, I had a good knowledge of what had to be done. And I was very fortunate to build teams around me that helped to really ensure the success of the brands.
And let me just give people a little history lesson, which is, I think, so important to do on this Icons and Experts series. You mentioned Sonesta Hotels, now one of the largest hotel companies out there. But back then, they were a small regional company out of the Boston area where you grew up. So that's pretty cool. Doug?
Well, you're absolutely right. And a lot of these hotel chains are getting bigger. So many of them actually have pieces that Mike worked on. And Mike,
Right.
share the story, I guess if you would, about early residence inn opportunity you had.
Well, Doug knows the story. When I was executive vice president of operations for Americana Hotels working out of Chicago, I worked for a guy named Hal Milner, who was the CEO. He's still alive. He's 90.
Wow.
And he was a tough boss, but we got along well. And basically he said, I want to go to a meeting with Jack DeBoer. And Jack DeBoer had founded Residence Inns. And I said, well, why do you want to do that? And he said, well, I think we want to buy it. So I don't know how many Residence Inns there were at that time, but there weren't a heck of a lot.
Right.
Jack DeBoer had found it, and he was going to sell it. So I went to this meeting, and I went with Hal, and we sat down, and Jack made his presentation, what have you. And then to show you that you can be successful and be wrong, I said to Hal, I don't think this thing's going to make it. And how wrong I was, because he bought it at that time. And then, of course, I ended up with a brand called Hawthorn Suites many, many years later, followed the extended stay business, watched it over the years, recently got involved in a situation with extended stay company. Somebody was looking to buy it. And I was on a sort of a temporary board to look at it. The purchase didn't take place. Someone else bought it, but it's been an incredible success in the business for not only for the people who own the businesses or the franchisees, but also the people who stay there. and they come at all shapes and sizes of extended stay, from the bottom of the market to the top of the market. So I think I made a huge mistake when when Hal and I didn't buy it. So I'm willing to admit that you can have all the experience, but I didn't know how good it was when I first got involved, and then finally got involved with a couple of, when we had Bay Bridge at Holiday Inn, and then of course at Hawthorn Suites at US Franchise Systems.
Right.
But it's a wonderful accommodation, and people in the hospitality industry tend to diminish new product. They go back to the old products, and Jack DeBoer has done many things in extended stay since, and now you have things like Airbnb that have come along, and the industry continues regardless of what the innovation is.
Yep. And Mike, let me just do a quick history lesson for people. Throughout this series of the Icons and Experts, because we're focusing a lot on extended stay, this name you are going to hear again and again. And of course, I'm talking about Mr. Jack DeBoer. We already recorded another episode for this series. He came up in there. I think we might have to, put in a game to see how many episodes in a row. But he created so many iconic brands and is really the grandfather of extended stay. Think Value Place, which became WoodSpring, his last project, which his granddaughter is now in charge of, Water Walk, which is just on a deal with Wyndham as we're recording this to help distribute that as well. So his imprint is long lasting. And I'll tell you, Mike, I had the chance to interview him once when he had a book come out, and that was a real highlight after getting to talk to you. So what was it like back then in the early days of what we see as the hospitality industry today? Did you have any idea that it could be such a massive business with hundreds and hundreds of American brands out there, with major companies that have 30 plus brands apiece? Or were you blind to being able to see something so crazy in the future?
Well, I think that I don't think anybody who started in 1961 in the hospitality business had any idea of how global and interesting and containing every kind of hospitality product that you could imagine. I mean, I grew up, when I could stay in a Motel 6, for $6. I ran a 3-star hotel in Boston as a new guy when we were charging $8 single and $12 double.
Wow.
So, and the hotels were not sophisticated. There were a few at the top that were, but they were all individually owned. Mm-hmm. There were 4 or 5 chains back in the 60s. And they, of course, most of them had disappeared. So, but some of them are still there. Hilton's still there. Sheraton's still there. Hyatt came late in the 60s. Yep. Marriott came late in the 60s. But no one could anticipate, no matter how smart you were, that the different shapes and sizes, different price points, it's an amazing business. And in the old days, the Cornell Hotel School, which was number one, was producing operators. Today they produce consultants and financial and real estate people. Mm-hmm. And so it's a great surprise to me. But I can remember one of the more interesting stories talking about the lack of vision that was going on in hotel at that time. Was my first sales meeting. I was in the sales department of the Roosevelt Hotel in New York, now home to migrants, of course.
Yep.
And I followed that because I started there.
Yeah.
And at any rate, I was called to my first sales meeting. I didn't know sales. I didn't know hotels. I was just hired in there, and first sales meeting, and they had a major problem. The Roosevelt was on top of Grand Central Station. It still is, and the problem they experienced, they said they were going to have, was the invention of the jet plane for individual travel. And they looked at it. They looked like that was going to destroy the business. It was going to destroy their business because people go back in Chicago in one day.
Right.
And I sat there as a complete neophyte. And I don't know how I was a kid just out of college, just out of graduate school. And I said, gee, I don't think it's going to destroy the business. I think it's going to grow the business.
Yeah.
And they all looked at me like I was a one-eyed idiot, because they didn't look at the future and the future of travel, of international travel and all that stuff that it would generate. They only looked at their particular situation sitting on top of Grand Central Station when the trains would come and give them business. So I think the visionaries in the industry that I was fortunate to know over the course of my career saw the opportunities, grew their businesses, changed their strategies, changed their product lines. But there was always a Jack the Boer around. There was always somebody. There was always a Kemmons Wilson at Holiday Inn. Right. There was always people who weren't trained in the traditional hotel industry that really saw the opportunity better than the hospitality people in the early going did. And so I think if I had any advantage, it was a lot of different experiences with different hotels, international hotels, resorts, all the thing along the way in my career. And I urge young people to look at the whole industry. Don't look at a particular piece, and get as much experience as you can, because it's always about two things, Glenn. It's always about taking care of the customer and taking care of your employees. Whatever brand you have, whatever star it is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6, extended stay or not, or whatever budget, whatever, take care of your customers, take care of your employees. That was the critical component for my success. And I think for those individuals, and some I still know, who run these big companies, the ones that are most successful are the ones that do that.
Right. That's good advice. And on the extended stays, as that, now that is coming about, the secret to none is now, the secret to some is now the secret to none. All of the brands are coming out with a lot of different extended stay products. Now, granted, it only represents 12% of the business of all of the hotels right now, and there's a tremendous amount of demand. But I'm interested in your opinion on all of the products that are coming out in this past year and will be coming out over the next couple of years on extended stay.
Well, I think that what's happening with extended stay is there's an extended stay product for every segment of the industry.
Yep.
You have extended stay at the bottom, at the low end person, even using them for long extended stays, longer than the original Residence Inn was, that they can rent for.
We're talking maybe up to 6 months from what
correct.
I understand, a lot of product.
Or whatever, you got that. You go all the way up to the 6-star extended stay where people are coming in for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. The benefits to the consumer on an extended stay are very significant if they and they have those needs. And it's interesting to watch. I'm looking at the extended stay product behind you, Doug, looking at the picture, and that's a beautiful product. And so consequently, you have now extended stay for every particular customer, every demand customer, that what they want, because of what the extended stay provides is a unique experience. And consequently, the large chains, which are now distribution chains, and are taking advantage by why you're seeing them expand in the extended stay area, because basically there's a customer for extended stay at every price point. And so that's why you're seeing this plethora of product coming into the marketplace.
And when you add that to the fact that the return on investment is 2 or 3 times of your standard hotel, it makes it extremely attractive.
Well, it's interesting you say that. I think of the early going, when there was very little extended stay, they were all-inclusive resorts.
Yep.
That came up. I was in the resort business also one time.
Were you on the European plan, right?
Well, it started, they had those, but even they didn't get to the complete inclusive that you get today. Now they were all-inclusive ships.
Yep.
That all that compared to regular, what I call the nickel and dime way, where you charge for everything. So extended stay doesn't charge for everything. So extended stay is basically kind of an all-inclusive hotel, so to speak, without having a fancy kitchen and a fancy dinner. So it really fills a niche, and the niche for these products is so enormous in terms of customer demand. So for the owner, Doug, you mentioned, for the owner, extended stay is, to me, is the same profitability I used to have when I ran an all-inclusive resort. Was an easy way to make money for the owner, much easier, and was better off for the guests who wanted that kind of product. You have the same thing with extended stay. That was Jack DeBoer's great idea.
Right. And it really did absolutely tremendous things in order to transform our industry. But just so you understand, let's connect where Mike Leven is coming from, the 1960s and with the state of the hospitality business then. You mentioned all these large brands, but back then they were usually one brand for one company, and they were big full service hotels, many times in downtown locations. Over time, when Kemmons Wilson did that famous trip across the country, and started to create the Holiday Inn brand, that started to democratize travel for all. And that's when road trips came up. And then when the major big push in the late 1990s started to happen, Mike, I remember select service boomed. And that's when you start to see all the different segmenting of the industry as it matured. And that is exactly what's happening right now in extended stay. Not only do people realize that it's a great product at this price point, but all the brands are saying, oh, there's white space to be able to create new and exciting projects at all different price points, which takes us to today in the extended stay industry, which is so exciting. Doug, I'll let you take it from there now that I need a drink after my history lesson, I think.
The Extended Stay Lodging Association is a nonprofit association. And 99% of our whole purpose is around education.
Yep.
So education, owner developer, in ways that the brands can't talk to them. On a peer-to-peer basis, we can share financials. We can share things that the brands can't to really help develop.
Yep.
This is really about giving back on a peer-to-peer basis. So we'll have a library of content, library expert programming, so that people can go back and look at this to help operate better, serve their guests better, ultimately to have a better operation. Really. Yep. Simple equation.
Yeah, I absolutely love it. Mike, see that you didn't see the vision up front. When did you realize that extended stay was not only a good idea, but it had the chance to really start to transform hospitality companies?
Well, I realized that when Marriott bought the extended stay, the Residence Inns from Jack DeBoer.
Yep.
As if they did it, they knew what they were doing. Marriott was an incredibly successful company. It still is a successful company. And I knew a lot of the players at Marriott, and I worked for a guy at that time who had worked for Marriott. And I think that they saw the opportunity because they were matching profitability and customer satisfaction together. Now, when you put customer satisfaction and developer satisfaction together, you have a very successful product, and extended stay is that kind of product. And you didn't see that naturally. Holiday Inn did it at their level of the business. Ramada Inn did it at their level of the business, and they got new owners into the hospitality business. These owners also grew up. They grew up from, I had Days Inn owners that became Holiday Inn owners, and then Holiday Inn owners became Marriott owners, and all the developers of these products ended up, growing the hospitality business, and they grew the customer base along with it. You see, in the early days, there were big hotel companies like Hilton, as I mentioned before, and they owned all the assets. The guys on the street who wanted to get into the business couldn't get in. There was no product for them to get into. And so consequently, extended stay became what Jack did, and he started, and what's going on now is you see finally that franchisees in particular, rather than hotel owners, the traditional ones, are in these extended stay products because they can make money and they can also satisfy their customers.
So a little context, what Mike was referring to was back in the day, everyone owned and operated their own properties. It wasn't really until the late 90s, I'd say, around the time the select service boom, simultaneously, the hotel companies started to say, oh, let's do this asset light strategy. Guys, please forgive me if I make a mistake here. Just correct me. And that's when they start to sell off the real estate, but keep management contracts for a lot of these properties, simultaneously starting to roll out new brands. Is that correct, Mike?
Yeah, I think the 90s is a little late. When I turned down the purchase of Residence Inn,
right,
was in 1984, 83 or 84.
I'm thinking about when, like, you would take a full service Hilton or a full service Marriott, sell it to a fund, and then keep the management thing. I seem to remember that because I started covering the industry in 96. And that was kind of the news of the day, I think. Please continue.
Yeah.
You'll know
Well,
better than me.
yeah, what happened is that companies got into the management business.
Yep.
And what you call the asset light business.
Mhm.
They didn't want to use capital to do that. They take the money off the top
Mhm.
and manage it for people, whatever. And so that also allowed entrepreneurs at the lower level. I don't mean lower from a class standpoint, but below that, they didn't want to get into a 5-star, 500-room hotel, hundreds of dollars, that kind of stuff. But they could still do it in the product that they could afford to build and expand and also manage. The management of extended stay is a whole lot different than the management of a full-service 5-star hotel. If you just think of the amount of department heads, think of the complications, think of the expertise you have to have in food and all these other things, conventions, meetings, things like that. That's a whole different kind of product base. So then owners now use management companies to manage it for them because they can't do it when you're in those type of places. But you can run your own extended stay hotel. I mean, it's not just if you do it right and satisfy your customers. It's not, you don't need an expertise of being a 5-star hotel operator needs. So it was easier to expand the territory for that kind of product. And it gave the marketplace two things: the customer base and the ownership base, both of whom could be successful for the appropriate price. And that's what it does. And that works in every business, not only the hospitality business.
I remember personally, Mike, around 94 or so, in the franchise development team, you put together a team that sold 500, 600, 700 Holiday Inn Expresses. I mean, you drove the limited service program in this country without question that people try to duplicate.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to. I take credit for building the largest sales forces that existed in the industry. Days in started that,
right?
Holiday Inn for Express, but it wasn't. That was an execution strategy to get to the owners, and so. But the major point about that, Doug, is it was the right product. In other words, Holiday Inn had two or three different kinds of products, but the one that the customer really wanted was a Holiday Express scenario. The competitor was Hampton, that did a very good job at that. But Hampton, I remember the first meeting on Holiday Express when I got there, the marketing guy wanted to serve a hot breakfast. And I turned it down. I said, Hampton's not serving a hot breakfast. Now, of course, they all serve hot breakfast.
Right.
I said, you're not going to. And then not only that, the marketing person said to me, we want to charge $3 for our hot breakfast. I said, you can't do that. I can't sell it. I can't sell the market, because my competitor is Hampton. So we put the sales force together, and basically we made it easy for the salespeople to sell, easy for the operator to buy, easier for the operator to operate, and that's just what the customer wanted. As time went on, the customer wanted a hot breakfast, but they didn't charge for it, and so, because the customer didn't want to pay it.
Right.
And so that was the trick there. And then other chains, big chains, followed the model of a large sales force as they got those kinds of brands. And so that was an extraordinary scenario. I mean, remember the first Holiday Express was built for about $50,000 or $60,000 a key. Now it's built for about $160 or $170 a key. And and now the rate, of course, was not $40. The rate's $140.
Yeah.
So that experience was copied by a lot of the industry, and a lot of the salespeople for those brands, Days Inns and Holiday, went to other companies, Good Choice and all the rest. But I think the critical component of success is matching owner needs with customer needs, and basically, if you do that, extended stay is what does it in spades for every size of the marketplace. So your market of customers and owners is very large when you have the right extended stay product.
Yeah, I will say that last part sounds like the answer to the next question that I'm going to ask you. When you launched U.S. Franchise Systems, Hawthorn was part of that. What were you thinking when you included an extended stay product right out of the gate, particularly since most of the hospitality universe still at that point had even hardly heard of extended stay.
Well, no, Hawthorn had, I think, 20 or 30 Hawthorns at the time.
Okay. And then you bought that, right?
Yeah, it was owned by Hyatt. It was owned by Hyatt. At that time, Hyatt had no idea of how to sell franchises, how to manage franchises. It was an ownership company.
Yeah, and now with Mark Oplamazian in the lead, what they've done to transform that company over the last X amount of time.
Years later,
Right,
when they bought America.
absolutely.
But what happened was they wanted a piece of my company, and they came in for 11% of my operation, and they gave me the brand. That's what it cost me 11% of U.S. franchise systems to get the brand. And we expanded. We were going hell bent, and really, really doing well at Hawthorn. And then what happened is a major franchisee of ours converted 5 of his Hawthorns to the Hilton product. And they had an extended stay product because he thought the Hilton brand was a bigger bit, and that really hurt our growth.
Right.
And Wyndham, when Hyatt originally then bought the whole company and then sold it to Wyndham, long gone at that time. The Wyndham has moved the Hawthorn brand up. I think they may have 150 to 200 of them. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, of course.
They were able to expand the Hawthorn brand. And Hawthorn was really a residence inn copy. And Hyatt had it, and they didn't really understand the business, and they didn't really pay attention. It was a pimple on the back of an elephant, you know?
Right.
So they didn't have it. And then they bought Ameris Suites, and they made it, they brought in Hyatt and went into the franchise business. But so the residence inn was sort of alone in the marketplace because Marriott handled it very appropriately. They knew how to grow a brand, and really did a good job with it. But it wasn't that hard because they had no real competition. Anybody who wanted to get an extended stay was running to Marriott first, and then Hilton did it. And I don't know how many of the Hilton extended stay brands are.
They keep introducing new ones. The most recent one, they should be debuting pretty soon.
Yeah, they're going deeper into the market. The Extended Stay America came in. Extended Stay America came in, and that was I met the owners then at that time, and they positioned themselves differently in the market, below Residence Inn. And in that particular category, and the market was all their own, but they owned them all. They didn't franchise in the early going. In fact, I think they franchise now, but I'm not as close to the individual decisions as I used to be. So
that's cool, Doug. I want you to take over just a second, but I do want to say I recall Hyatt bought Ameris Suites and then converted however many they had. I feel like it's over 100 of them into what became Hyatt House?
Hyatt Place.
Hyatt Place. All right, I was confused. It was either one of those, but that really helped them really get a leg up and push forward very quickly to get that brand off the ground. Doug?
Well, I am just incredibly impressed with how extended stay has moved along. As Mike had said earlier, it's the next evolution in brands and how companies are getting smarter in how to grow and not necessarily charge their current, franchisees more and more. You're growing through more brands. And with the traveling public moving around more, it just makes all the sense in the world. So,
yeah, it certainly does. Mike, last question for you. How do you see the state of extended stay now? Because all the players are in there. The brands are proliferating really quick. Have we reached max extended stay? Because I don't think so.
Well, I think that as you segment extended stay from the top to the bottom, there's always room for new players. The difficulty that, once again, I admit that I'm not as current as I used to be because I used to make my living being current. I'm not as current as I used to be, but I think that there are opportunities in extended stay in places that they're no longer, that have opportunities for brands of that type. And so, but there's still plenty of room. If you're going to go into a marketplace, let's take Las Vegas as a crazy example. I think there's one extended stay product in the Vegas market. At least there was 10 years ago. I don't know anymore. So in other words, there are different markets that require extended stay that product hasn't expanded into, and the extended stay product can eliminate obsolete products. One of the problems in the hotel business I always found was that you can never get rid of stuff. It just stays there forever.
Right. We just throw in one of the famous statements in our industry is we're not overbuilt, we're under demolished. Please continue.
Right. Yeah, I remember that. That's right. And I think there's a lot of opportunities to get rid of, blow away products and products like that.
Yep.
And convert them to extended stay where extended stay doesn't exist.
Yep.
And you try to convert a lower tier hotel into an extended stay, it doesn't work. But to build a new product if the land is good and the market is still good, there'll always be, people will create opportunities. There's never an end in the hospitality business to what you can do to serve the marketplace, because the individual consumer market keeps growing. Now, I mean, if you want to go into long-term birth rates and things like that, if you're that kind of a person, you might worry about it. But there is that old statement about under demolished is still true. It's still around. I'll tell you one story. I don't want to bore you, but I'll tell you one story. In 1946, 1946, my father came back from World War II. He got into his brother's car, which was a 1946 Chevrolet, the first ones on the market in December of 46 in Boston, with my mother, his mother, and me. 4 people driving from Boston to Miami Beach.
Wow.
For vacation. 5 days, hotels all the way. So fast forward to 1987. 1987, I go to Petersburg, Virginia, to cut the ribbon for a Days Inn that's opening in Petersburg, Virginia. I look across the street from the opening, cutting the ribbon, and there is the Roses of Piccadilly Motel that I stayed in 1946, selling rooms for $12.
Wow.
Now, I don't suppose that the Roses of Piccadilly is still there now in 2024, but I wouldn't bet against it. Wouldn't bet against it. So when you talk about owners demolishing, that there's a whole big opportunity to blow them away and build new, and that's new product at different stages of the market, and that can be extended stay product very easily.
And you take
opportunities.
Take a developer like Gary Tharum, probably build more personal hotels than anybody else on the planet, and he's focused on extended stay. Just focused. So it is.
Right. Yeah, I think, Doug, you probably remember when there was a lot of, in 1985, when I went to Days Inn, there was a consultant in the hospitality business that was only for the economy lodging business. He was a specialist in economy lodging. Well, you're going to see the same thing happen in extended stay. There are going to be consultants, lots of them, companies that are going to have extended stay departments, the same way that they had budget departments, same way they have 4-star, 5-star convention departments. It really, I think, I don't know how Jack DeBoer is still going around or not. I guess he is. And basically, he'll come up with another product. I mean, and then when I read the hotel press from time to time now, and I see so many extended stay products coming up, you said before, the reasons is the economics work. It works for the customer and it works for the owner. When you can do that, you're going to do it, and that's so the future, I think, is not going to be. A lot of people say too many brands, everybody's overbuilt, etc. I don't agree with that. I think there's tremendous growth still available.
And also you think about the fact that they're resilient to economic issues. Look at COVID. Our portfolio, which now averages between 90-91% occupancy, COVID was 76. We're fine. And while others took a different approach, obviously, in different times, extended stay weathers all of that.
I agree. The worst thing that happens is people can't get in the house or an apartment. They have to stay in an extended stay facility. So you have too. You know, you got different segments of that marketplace that you can do. And it gives you a lot more flexibility. But if you look at the Roosevelt Hotel now, look at the flexibility they're in. They have the migrants.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and they're doing their part to help other hoteliers because they're taking a lot of capacity out of the system too, which we desperately needed in New York for sure pre-COVID. Mike, before we wrap up, what's one lesson you learned that you think is applicable to helping younger developers, investors, and opportunists out there for the hospitality industry?
well, as a younger developer and as a younger person coming into hospitality, I think you got to pick your niche. You got to
Yep.
pick your spot. You got to understand what kind of competencies you need to operate, whether you need management or you don't need management, whether you're going to manage yourself with your own company or not, or whether you're going to get with the big boys. You need to have distribution. Today, the distribution capability of all of the big ones means you're going to be able to develop business. The way we used to develop business when I started is you had to go knock on doors to get the business. Today, the business comes through all kinds of different channels, and you have to be sophisticated enough to handle it. So I think as a young person, you have to be guided by what kind of investments you want to make. What are the sizes of the investments? What is the return of the investments? And I think these young people today who have the capability to develop their own. My son does a lot of that for Prakashani Group.
Yep.
He knows the business from on top of it and the bottom of it. So they pick their spots according to what works and what returns they can get. And I think it's developed. The sophistication of the potential owner or developer has also developed over the last 30 years. I mean, Holiday Inn grew with accountants and lawyers. They didn't have the slightest idea how to make a bed.
Yeah.
And their wives used to make the beds. I mean, but that's how they grew. But you can't do that anymore. The cost of entry is too high. You have to have certain expertise and certain branding that's going to help you to get off the dime. But in the end, my advice would be do what you can afford. Don't chase the big ones. And then someday when you're really wealthy from the ones that create the profitability, do a trophy hotel for yourself, but don't expect to make any money.
Yeah, you could just ask Bill Gates, Ty Warner et al. About that for sure. Mike Leven, thank you so much for honoring us with your time today. I really appreciate it.
Doug, and lots of good luck to you. It's great to see you. And I love to see some of the old alumni doing well, and most of them are. So it's great. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Hey, and Doug, you know what? After this conversation, I think people should go check out ESLA.org. What do you think?
I think it's a great idea. There are plenty of memberships, lots of information. Again, nonprofit. We're here for peer-to-peer. And so please check it out. There's a lot of information. All the brands are there, to help you with more information. It's something to do. It's important for everybody.
Yes, you do. Let's all learn together and how we can be more successful leveraging the power of existence. Hey, that's Doug Artugio. I'm Glenn Hausman. We've got a year's worth of great content coming your way. Not only are we going to be focusing on incredible icons like Mike Leven, but we're also going to be doing a lot of shows focused on the expertise you need out there to be more successful in this business. So we'll see you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye.